All of you and welcome to the session, the Hindu editorial analysis for proficiency in English. As usual, let us start with the snippets. What is the first one? India-US defense ties. You all know the word ties. And sometimes students ask me, depends, is it SC or CE? Either way it is correct. Do remember. Defense ties. Army's Apache group now at full strength. A particular group in Army. It is at full strength. Simple words, familiar words. Coming to the next one. Historic low. Rupee breaches 91 mark against dollar. Not good news. Historic low. Remember the expression, historic low for the first time. 91, it breaches 91 mark. Breach has two meanings. What is the first meaning? Breach, a crack. Second meaning, violate. It goes with a contract agreement. Violation of a contract, we say breach of contract. And crossing 91 mark against a dollar. Coming to the next one, center stand opposed. IFFK to screen films despite censor denial. Screen means show. Screen films despite, in spite of, censor denial. Deny has two meanings. One meaning to say no, another meaning to refuse. That also you have to recollect. And censorship you all know. When it comes to despite, in spite of, in one exam they gave a question, a blank and 5 options, 3 options not relevant. Students had to choose between despite, in spite of. Which one will you choose? You have to choose despite. Why? Despite is a little more formal than in spite of. That you have to recollect. And a common error, people write in spite of as 2 words. But do remember, in spite of 3 separate words. Don't write as 2 words. Even that you have to recollect. The last one or the last but one. Data point, organ donations after death. Data shows more women are willing to donate organs. That's good news. Organ donation. And among the donors, it seems the percentage of women more. Data shows more women are willing to donate organs. Coming to the last one, IPL auction. Green becomes the costliest overseas buy. You all know IPL auction. Yesterday also we got the news item. Based on the auction bidding, it seems a particular player has become the costliest player. Who is that? Green becomes the costliest overseas buy. Coming to the main headline, again a bit disturbing. Why? Indian linked to Sydney beach attack. Indian linked to Sydney beach attack. I did the editorial yesterday. Bondi beach attack, Sydney, Australia. It seems Indian linked to Sydney beach attack. Sajid Akram, one of the 2 Bondi beach attackers who killed at least 16 people in Australia on Sunday, he is an Indian citizen. This is disturbing. It seems Indian citizen must have gone there, settled over there. Coming to the other headlines, snippets. Bengal's sports minister resigns over Messi fiasco. There is an important word. We have got a few times. What is a greenhorn? Who is this? Naidu. Very good. Coming to fiasco. What is the meaning of fiasco? Utter failure, complete failure. We use the word fiasco. Peace proposals to be presented to Russia soon. You all know the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Based on that, against that backdrop, debacle also you have to think of. Very good. Fiasco, failure, debacle. Coming to the pic, usually we have a nice pic, but today a disturbing pic. You can see charred buses, but there is no caption. Cranes clear the charred remains of buses after a pile-up in thick fog triggered fires on the Yamuna Expressway in Mathura on Tuesday. Some collision because of fog. At least 13 people killed, 60 injured in pile-up on Yamuna Expressway. You all know right now Delhi, nightmare. The word nightmare has two different meanings. One meaning, a bad dream. What is the other meaning of nightmare? Frightening experience. Very unfortunate. Coming to the next one, Rahul Sonia get relief in National Herald case. Get relief, some sort of respite also you can say. Coming to the next one, Centre introduces bill to replace MGNREGA amid loud opposition protests. When opposition protests, you should think of the word uproar. Uproar means what? Noisy protest. That also you have to think of. That's all from the front page of today's The Hindu paper. Let us go to the editorial. Today also we have a lot of words. You should think of amid, amidst, both mean the same. What is the meaning? In the middle of. So many words. First one, stepping stone. Have you heard of this any time? Stepping stone. Part of speech, noun phrase, a preliminary stage or means leading to further progress. Example, the policy acted as a stepping stone to reforms. Indigenous, part of speech adjective, we have got many a time. Indigenous people, indigenous industries, native, originating naturally in a particular region or country. Indigenous technology reduces import dependence. Inhabitants, original inhabitants of a place, we use the word indigenous people. But if you take Australia, original inhabitants of the Australian continent, they are known as aboriginals, an important word. Have you heard of this word, aboriginals? And these are tribal people in Red Indians, yes, of course. If you take the North American continent, Red Indians. And these aboriginals of Australia, they invented boomerang. Boomerang can be a noun, can be a verb. It is an inverted V-shaped wooden tool, hunting tool. Works on principles of aerodynamics. Who is this Vishnu? Very good. Works on the principles of aerodynamics. Very surprising. But it has as a verb a different meaning. What does it mean? Imagine I do something expecting a positive result, but I get a negative result. Then I say my project has boomeranged. You should also think of counterproductive. Yes, aspirant. Very good. Counterproductive, boomeranged, same. A roster we have got recently. Indigo crisis, we got the word roster. Duties, responsibilities of employees based on the time slots and days. A list or register of people, entities or items included. The roster of participants expanded. It also means a list. Entities, entities singular, entities plural. Part of speech, noun. Distinct organizations, institutions, or legal bodies, private entities entered the sector. Generally, we use it with individuals also we can use. Imagine there's a group, all are active, one person is not active. Then we say he's a non-entity. Yes, Naidu. He is a non-entity, that you should recollect. Proliferation. Proliferate means to multiply in large number, quickly proliferate. For that, there's one important idiom. What is it? Mushroom growth. Proliferate, mushroom growth. Yes. Leaps and bounds means to progress or to grow very fast. Entities, then proliferation, coming to rapid spread or increase, especially of weapons or influence. It could be anything for that matter. Nuclear proliferation is a global concern. Mitigate, our students know, we have got many a time. Reduce the intensity of something, part of speech verb, to reduce the severity, impact, or seriousness of something. Policies aim to mitigate risk, reduce risk. Liability, an important word, legal responsibility for damage, loss, or harm. The operator bears liability for accidents. Another meaning of liability, burden. Imagine someone depends on you and he doesn't want to get a job, but he wants to depend on you for a long time. Then you say, he has become a liability. He has become what? A liability. Here, liability is something like responsibility. Warrant has two meanings. One meaning, arrest warrant. Responsibility, you should think of the word onus, aspirant, very good. Onus, responsibility. And warrant means what? Arrest warrant, noun. But the situation warrants means the situation demands, call for, to justify or make necessary a particular action or concern. The issue warrants caution. The issue demands caution, calls for caution. An important word. Cap, as a noun you all know, as a verb, limit, upper limit, to place a limit on something. Liability is capped at 3,000 crore. Exempt, tax exemption, you all know that expression, that combination. Part of speech, verb, adjective, to free from an obligation or a rule. You are exempted means what? You don't have to follow that particular rule. Certain installations are exempt from insurance. Recourse, part of speech, noun, it can also be a verb. The right to seek legal remedy or help. You seek help or remedy, then you can say recourse, depend on something. Victims have legal recourse, means they can depend on the judiciary. Statutory, we have got many a time. Statute means a written law, statutory, legal. Part of speech, adjective, established or governed by law. This is a key word. A statutory framework was created. Vests, part of speech, verb, confers or grants authority, power, or rights. The law vests power in the center. Means the power is with the center based on the law. But there's another expression you guys have to know. What is that one? Vested interests. Have you heard of this any time? Vested interests. What does it mean? Selfish interest, ulterior motive. We use vested interest. Conducive atmosphere, typical combination, part of speech, adjective, helpful in bringing about a particular result. Conducive for growth means useful for growth. Not conducive to public trust. An important word you have to remember. Deter, we have got many a time. Nuclear weapons act as deterrent. Part of speech, verb, to discourage or prevent by fear or doubt. Imagine someone has nuclear weapons, country A, country B also has nuclear weapons. They never resort to war because nuclear weapons act as deterrents. Regulatory gaps may deter investors, means prevent investors to invest. Today I have brought 7 questions based on mini mocks, error location, word usage, connector, all these. But this editorial, not easy to comprehend, a bit complicated, difficult from comprehension point of view. Let us see how it goes. Stepping stone, you can say the first step towards something. On nuclear policy, the Shanti Bill, related to what? That's the reason why it is not a familiar topic, unfamiliar, a little intellectual. What is the main idea? India's nuclear governance needs regulatory independence. New combination we have got. Nuclear governance needs something according to the editorial. Needs what? A regulatory independence. That means there is no independence. So based on that, it needs regulatory independence. That's what you have to understand. But you cannot guess the broad framework because it's an unfamiliar topic. Nuclear power contributed only around 3% of the electricity generated in India in 2024-25. Only 3% it seems when it comes to electricity generated. What is the contribution nuclear power? 3% of the electricity generated in India in 2024-25. The government has set a target, which tense is that present perfect active voice, has set a target to install 100 gigawatt of nuclear capacity by 2047, including from at least 5 indigenous small modular reactors by 2033. Indigenous, native, local, small modular reactors by 2023. This sentence talks about the goal, the ambition, what India wants to achieve in the field of nuclear power. Has set a target to install 100 gigawatt of nuclear capacity by 2047, including from at least 5 indigenous small modular reactors by 2033. When you see the word including, you have to think of an important rule. When we combine two subjects using with, together with, along with, as well as, and not, including, like, unlike, all these, the verb agrees with the first subject. That you have to recollect. In this picture, the Shanti Bill proposes to change. Now it talks about the bill. In this picture, the Shanti Bill proposes to change who can legally build and operate civil nuclear facilities. It is all about who can build civil nuclear facilities, build and operate civil nuclear facilities. By allowing the center to permit nuclear energy activities through licenses to government entities, joint ventures, and any other company subject to conditions, Shanti indicates that the intended new class of operators is domestic private capital rather than foreign plant owners. Yes, exactly. So it talks about a lengthy sentence from here. By allowing the center to permit nuclear energy activities, how? Through licenses to government entities, government organizations, and also through joint ventures and through any other company subject to conditions. It has done something. What is the net result? Shanti indicates that the intended new class of operators of operators is a phrase, put it in brackets. New class is not foreign, domestic. Domestic private capital rather than foreign plant owners. India being able to meet its 100 gigawatt target will indeed require large capital mobilization, and allowing licensed non-government entities expands the roster of entities that can share the construction risk. India has a goal 100 gigawatt by 2047. How can India achieve that goal? This sentence talks about that. India being able to meet its 100 gigawatt target will indeed require. Writer can also say will indeed depend on, will indeed used for emphasis. Will indeed require, will indeed need large capital mobilization, because nuclear power, one has to invest crores of rupees. Based on that, large capital mobilization, and not only that, and allowing licensed non-government entities expand the roster of entities. The list is expanded, expands the roster of entities that can share the construction risk. More players are being brought in. Shanti also seeks to keep the most sensitive fuel cycles in state control while holding room for private participation in planned delivery and parts of the supply chain. Here there is some control. What is the control? Shanti also seeks to keep the most sensitive fuel cycles in state control, government control, while holding room for private participation in planned delivery and parts of the supply chain, reducing scope of commercial entry to those segments most relevant to scale power generation. Please excuse me. A lengthy sentence, what does it say? Shanti also seeks to keep the most sensitive fuel cycles in state control while holding room for, means other private players can participate. Private participation in planned delivery and parts of the supply chain, reducing scope of commercial entry to those segments most relevant to scale power generation and keeping functions sensitive to nuclear proliferation within the state. It says something like state wants to keep sensitive things and other dimensions, other aspects, private players can come into picture. The bill could also mitigate. We have got this word many a time. Mitigate means what? Reduce. The bill could also mitigate the legal ambiguity. Ambiguous means not clear, vague. The bill could talks about possibility. The bill could also mitigate the legal ambiguity new entrants face by putting safety, enforcement and dispute resolution and the terms of participation in the same statute. If they mention all these things in the same statute, they can remove the ambiguity. Statute means what? Written law. Mitigate the legal ambiguity by doing all these things in the same statute. This could also reduce transaction costs for developers and shrink site approval and commissioning timelines. One more advantage, reduce transaction costs for developers and shrink site approval and commissioning timelines. Benefits it talks about. Dubious means doubtful. However, the bill's liability and governance provisions warrant caution. Here, the writer talks about some sort of limitation. Based on that, the contrasting word, however. However, the bill's liability, accountability, legally answerable, liable, liability and governance provisions warrant caution, demand caution. The maximum operator liability for a nuclear incident is 3,000 crore. The editorial believes it is not sufficient. Well, how much is it? 3,000 crore. The center is liable for nuclear damage beyond the operator's cap and can also assume full liability for a non-government installation if in the public interest. What is the liability of the center? It is like the center is liable for nuclear damage beyond the operator's cap. How much is the operator's cap? 3,000 crore. And can also assume full liability, role of the center, for a non-government installation if in the public interest. These choices make investment risk easier to price. These choices make investment risk easier to price, but also ask whether the capped operator amount is adequate for victims and for environmental remediation. Now there is a question, is it enough 3,000 crore? Ask whether the capped operator amount, how much is that? 3,000 crore. Is it adequate? What is the meaning of adequate? Enough for victims and also for environmental remediation. What is the meaning of remedy? Solution, remediation, remedial, talking about the solution. Second, Shanti requires operators to maintain insurance or other financial security, but exempts the center's nuclear installations, rendering clear public accounting very important. It seems the private players, they have to maintain something. Shanti requires operators to maintain insurance or other financial security, but exempts the center's nuclear installations. Center's nuclear installations, they are exempted. They don't have to do that. Making clear public accounting very important. It also allows operator recourse only when expressly provided in a written contract or when an incident is due to an act or an omission with the intent to cause nuclear damage. Operator recourse, how can they, if at all the situation demands, what should they depend on? Operator recourse only when expressly provided in a written contract or when an incident is due to an act or an omission with the intent to cause nuclear damage. This makes supplier accountability depend largely on what the operator secures by contract. Here it becomes a little difficult to understand. Context becomes unfamiliar, a bit difficult to understand. This makes supplier accountability depend largely on what the operator secures by contract, which means how much recourse the operator has against suppliers can vary across projects. Suppliers and operators, how much the operator has against suppliers can vary across projects. Based on the project, it may change. Finally, India's nuclear governance needs to address its regulators' independence. This is the main idea. Has to focus on regulators' independence. While Shanti creates a statutory framework, it also vests significant influence in appointments with the Centre and the Atomic Energy Commission. There is a statutory framework, but in the same statutory framework, something is there. It also vests significant influence in appointments with the Centre and also the Atomic Energy Commission. This is still not conducive to increasing public trust and may also deter investor confidence. It ends on a negative note. This is still not conducive, not encouraging to increasing public trust and may also stop investor confidence, prevent investor confidence. Something has to be done, and it is the first step, stepping stone. Too early to judge, but it ends on that particular note. Let us go to questions based on comprehension skill. A bit challenging. The primary objective of the Shanti Bill, as inferred from the passage, is to. What is the primary objective? Reduce India's dependence on fossil fuels by accelerating renewable energy adoption. Facilitate foreign ownership, not at all. Enable private domestic participation in civil nuclear power generation while retaining state control over sensitive areas. Clearly mentioned in the passage. Which of the following best explains why the Shanti Bill restricts private participation in certain segments of the nuclear fuel cycle? In certain areas, private parties are restricted. Why? What is the reason for that? To minimize operational inefficiencies, to protect areas linked to nuclear proliferation and national security. Obviously, what should be given utmost importance? National security. B, very good. That is the answer. The editorial suggests that allowing licensed non-government entities to operate nuclear facilities would primarily help India by eliminating delays caused by public sector monopolies, transferring all construction risk to private players, expanding capital mobilization and risk sharing for achieving capacity targets. Yes, very good, within no time. Sukesh and aspirant Vishnu Naidu. C is the answer. Which of the following is a key concern raised regarding the operator liability cap of 3,000 crore? What is the cap limit? 3,000 crore. But the writer has objected. Concern, expressed concern. What is it? It could discourage private companies from entering the nuclear sector. It may be insufficient for compensating victims and environmental remediation. Same wording has been used. Easy to answer based on that. Sometimes what happens in the exam, they take the word from the passage they give in the question. Then easy to options, easy to answer. Sometimes they may rephrase same meaning, not the same wording. Then it becomes a bit challenging. But here easy. Why does the editorial argue that regulatory independence remains a critical unresolved issue? It talks more about regulatory independence, but not too much information given, a bit difficult to understand. Why is it critical, unresolved issue? Because private operators prefer self-regulation, because the bill excludes international oversight mechanisms, because appointment powers remain concentrated with the center and the Atomic Energy Commission. This also clearly mentioned, yes, 5C. Good. Let us go to questions based on exam topics. Error location, no division. Read meticulously and try to spot the error. Australia has witnessed growing anti-Semitic incidents targeting its Jewish community, which makes up some 0.4% of its population. Not easy, this one. No one has answered. Here we cannot use targeting its Jewish community. We have to say incidents that target. Now read the sentence with this expression. Australia has witnessed growing anti-Semitic incidents that target its Jewish community, which makes up some 0.4% of its population. Targeting is not correct. That targets is correct. Not an easy one, that's what I said. I don't see, no one has responded, perhaps a tough one. Australia introduced tough gun control laws after the Port Arthur massacre and enforcing a strict licensing regime. Okay, sir, Sukesh. Got it, sir. Vishnu. Aspirant has got it right, very good. Quite challenging, yes, Naidu. This is to some extent easy based on parallel expression. Should not be a problem to get question number 2. Australia introduced tough gun control laws after the Port Arthur massacre. And here we have the verb in past. And it talks about the whole context goes into past. Then you cannot use the verb in ing form. What is the right word? Enforced. Introduced, enforced. Parallel expression. Good, you guys got it right. Wonderful. Rachel, okay. Good, I appreciate. Rachel, old student who got bank job or new, someone new? Fillers, Australia must remain alert to forces, domestic and foreign, seek to divide society. Here we have keyword, forces. Based on that, you have to use a relative pronoun. Forces which, whose, who, whom, where. What is the appropriate relative pronoun? This should not be a problem. New, okay. Good that you responded. No. Oh, I'm surprised. How come C? So many students. Australia must remain alert to forces, domestic and foreign. That doesn't matter. Forces which seek to divide society. Persons we use who? Things we use which seek to. A is the answer. I'm rather surprised. Choose a sentence where retaliate is used correctly. The government retaliated a strict law after the incident. He retaliated against the criticism by resigning. The policy was retaliated by the parliament. She retaliated the accusations calmly. Retaliation was retaliated swiftly. This is a bit strange. What is the answer? The government retaliated a strict law after the incident. By resigning retaliation, policy was retaliated by the parliament calmly. The retaliation was retaliated swiftly. This seems okay. But answer, the government retaliated a strict law after the incident. That's what I said. Nothing wrong with this also. Choose a correct usage of perpetrate. Perpetrators means criminals. Perpetrate, continue, one of the meanings. The leader perpetrated peace talks. It has a negative connotation. Usually it goes with a negative context. The charity perpetrated relief work. The attackers perpetrated a hate crime. He perpetrated an apology. The court perpetrated justice. Grammatically, they may be right, but contextually, meaning point of view, connotation point of view, only one stands out. Which one is that? C. The attackers perpetrated a hate crime. Phrase replacement. Replace a phrase turned into a scene of massacre with the most appropriate option. First, you have to know the meaning of a scene into a scene of turned into a scene of massacre. Massacre means killing large number of people brutally. Which option means the same? It is a negative context. You cannot use this. Transformed into a site of mass killing seems okay. Ordinary place, no. Peaceful assembly, no. Cultural hub, no. So what is the answer? Turned into a scene of massacre means transformed, changed into a site of mass killing. Because massacre means mass killing. Answer is B. Good, you guys got it right, some of you. I guess that is the last one. That's all for today. I hope you guys have got enriched. Have a nice day. Thank you very much. For today.